question. Do you have a drawer full of t-shirts that you're no longer wearing, but you have no idea what to do with them? Hold tight. I have the perfect solution for you. Welcome to my channel and welcome back if you've chilled with me here before. My name is Tarina Nicole and I am a professional upcycler. For more than 20 years, I've taken discarded leather coats and leather garments and I've turned them into leather handbags, home decor, and jewelry. Today, I'm going to show you how to take your old t-shirts that you're not wearing and turn them into something functional and beautiful, a t-shirt quilt. So, let me say off the bat that I am not a quilter. Quilting is not really my thing, okay? Although in my 20s, I did manage a quilting shop for a little while. And while I was there, I took the quilting workshops offered to the public so that, I understood the whole quilting process. So I will say that although I'm not a quilter, I do have the quilting foundation understood. And so I use that knowledge to create my t-shirt quilt. I will say also that I've only quilted maybe 2 quilts prior to this. Neither were t-shirt quilts. I quilted a quilt for each of my 2 children. So I still consider myself a novice quilter, although I have some experience under my belt. This particular quilt was a very special occasion for me as well. Instead of a birth, I'm honoring a death with this quilt. My beloved cousin passed away suddenly and her sister shipped me all of her t-shirts asking that I would turn them into a t-shirt quilt to gift to her 2 sons that she left behind. And I was honored to be chosen to do so. And with the remaining t-shirts, I turned them into a throw pillow as well. So I am hopeful that her children are reminded of her and think about the times that she wore these t-shirts and the good times that they had with their beautiful, loving mom. So without further ado, this was my process. Let's get to it. I hadn't determined beforehand how big I wanted each square to be, but I knew that I wanted the biggest icon on one of her t-shirts to not be hindered by making a square too small. So in this case, Mickey Mouse was the biggest icon. I cut Mickey Mouse in a square so that he was completely left intact. In my case, it was 13 by 14. And then I used Mickey Mouse as the template to cut all of the other t-shirts, placing him directly on any logos or artwork and cutting around this template to cut all of the t-shirts. So all my squares have been cut and laid out. This is the format I've decided on. And so the next step is to pin each square in a row together. So I'll be pinning this to this one to that one, and so on until I have a full row. Then I'll go stitch them, and then I'll pin each row to each other and then stitch all the rows together so that this whole thing becomes one connected unit. Okay, all of the squares have been stitched together. See, it's all one big continuous piece, which is the top of the quilt. Time for the next step. Because my cousin's favorite color is brown and she went to Clemson University in South Carolina, I took some brown leather and made a couple of paws because that's the logo of Clemson University, and placed that on the squares that were just plain white. Also, she had a couple of t-shirts that had ruffles, and so the ruffles are around the tops and bottoms of the quilt to be. So the next step is to do the batting, and this is the fabric I'm using for the back. So it's the back, this is the batting, which will go in the middle. So we're getting there. We are getting there. Now I'm sewing the back of the quilt to the front of the quilt, right sides together. It's really important when you are sewing the front to the back of the quilt that you leave a nice size opening, because you need to stuff this with your filler. I've used 2 layers of filler because I wanted a really plush, comfy quilt experience. So I'm going to open this up, and with both layers on top of each other, I'm going to stuff this the same way I would stuff a duvet, making sure each of the corners of the filler get to the corners of the quilt. Once it's stuffed, you just have to pin your opening closed so that you can get to the next step, stitching. So now that the opening is all pinned, what I'm going to do is top stitch this so that it's closed, but I'm going to continue the top stitch all around the edge of the entire quilt, so that it's not obvious that this top stitching was where the opening is. And also the top stitching will help me really anchor the filling inside, because right now I feel like it can kind of like bunch up or curl up at the edges like I see here. And so once I get this all flat around the edges, giving it a little top stitch will help anchor it before the very last step, because right now you have 3 separate layers. You have the top layer, you have the filling, and you have this bottom layer. But a quilt is when all 3 layers are one. So I'm going to do a quilter's knot in each of these corners to go through all 3 layers to make this one completed quilt. So I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine to do my top stitching all the way around this quilt. I don't know if I said this already, but it's really important that you're using the right machine needle. You need to be using a needle that is a ballpoint needle when you're sewing through knits, which is what a t-shirt is. Otherwise, it's going to snag, break your needle, frustrate you. So very important. Make sure you're using a ballpoint needle to make a t-shirt quilt. All right, what is the quilter's knot? So, once you're done putting your quilt together, you still have to bring these 3 layers together, because you have your top layer, you have your inner filling, and you have your back layer. Typically, you could just sit at a sewing machine and then do some beautiful stitches all throughout, but that's not my forte. I'm not a quilter, so I'm going to bring mine together by doing what's called a quilter's knot. And so what you want to get some embroidery floss. Got a whole bunch of it here. I'm using this particular color because it's very similar to, it's as close as I could really get to the back of my quilt, like this wheat color. And so what you want to do, what I'm doing at least, is doing a little quilter's knot at every intersection of my t-shirt quilt. So let's do one together. Oh, I have one here as well. So let's come to the next intersection. All right, so what I'm gonna do is go down from the top of my quilt, and I'm going to leave a little bit of a tail. See? Tail. And then on the other side of that corner, I'm coming back up. Maybe there's like an 1/8 of an inch between where I went down and where I'm coming back up. So the eye of this needle is pretty big, so you kind of gotta wiggle it. So now I have both ends of the thread back on top. I'm gonna pull them so that they are the same length. And then you tie first knot and your second knot. Come on through. And then you simply cut the excess about 1/4 of an inch tall, creating this little knot here at the intersection. And so since this is going through all of your layers, you now officially have a quilt because all 3 layers are now one. So I'm just going to take the time to do every little intersection throughout this very large quilt, and then I will be officially done quilting.
All done. I am so absolutely in love with this quilt. I love the way it came out. I hope this video helps you make your t-shirt quilt making experience amazing. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like, and be sure to share this with any of your creative friends who have a drawer full of t-shirts with no idea what to do with them.